Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am Tamara Shealey. Good morning on this gloomy Friday morning, July the 19th. Good morning, good morning. Let's see where my trusty co-host is. Let's see where he is.
Here I am.
Hi, David. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you?
Hanging in there.
Hanging in there. It's going to be a great broadcast this morning. We have some great guests in the lobby. All right, let's see who's here. Mr. Milt Tambor. Mr. Milt Tambor has written a book. He has written a book. His book is titled A Democratic Socialist 50-Year Adventure. Good morning, Milt.
Good morning, Tamara.
How are you? Welcome to the broadcast.
Well, it's great to be here, and thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. Along the way, I was Team Democratic Socialist around here. So thank you for being on the broadcast. Thank you for writing this book that David is flashing there on the screen.
Right. Giving you a little free advertising.
You got to go out and get this book. Where is it available? Amazon? You having book signings? You're going to be everywhere in a little while, Milton.
Well, I think I'm handling it directly. I'm doing the distribution.
Awesome.
But a week from Tuesday at the Wheat Street Baptist Church at noon, I will be distributing copies, and I'll have a signing, a book signing at the Wheat Street Baptist Church, which is sponsored by the People's Agenda. So people could come by and have a free lunch, and they can get a copy of the book.
Awesome. David has read the book cover to cover. David.
Yeah. Well, let's let Milt, discuss his work. I thought I'd just start out, Milt, by just asking you why you wrote the book. What was your intention? I'm assuming this was not simply a vanity project. So why don't you start out with just telling us what prompted it and what you hope people will get out of it?
Right. Well, I appreciate that question. What I was trying to do was try to make sense of a career that I had with the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees. So I was involved in the labor movement for 35 years. And when I retired in 2001, I was trying to make sense of what that had been, what that experience meant to me. When you retire, you want to reflect on what your life has been. So writing about it was a way for me to understand what and why I was involved. And originally, I just thought of this as maybe an essay, something that I could share with friends and colleagues. And then the more that I thought about it, I realized that I had some history here with anti-Vietnam War protests, with the labor movement, with the sanitation worker strike that King was involved in, the New American movement, the organizing against the war in Central America, intervention in the 80s, and then the formation of the Democratic Socialists of America. So the more that I thought about it, I said maybe these can all be connected together. And if I talk about all of those activities, then my life would make sense to me. And I did have that same question that you were raising. I was asking, is this a vain project? Why am I doing this? How is my story different, unique than other stories? And the fact is, as I talked to a lot of the activists that I was involved in, I would say that everybody who's been an activist over the years has an important story. And my story is not special. I think one of the reasons it may be is I kept good records. And so on the organizations that I belong to, the protests, the demonstrations, I kept those records and I was able to refer to them. So there's a documentation of history that's part of the memoir.
Right. And your kind of life arc, Milton, is that you grew up in Detroit, right?
That's right.
And you and your long career in the labor movement was in the Detroit and Michigan labor movement. And
Right.
then at around the turn of the 21st century, you moved here to Atlanta, to Dunwoody, right?
Exactly right.
So we really have two parts to this story: the Detroit experience in labor, and then down here in Atlanta with for a good about 20 years, right? Kind of a second act or stage of your life, which was really involved in the long work of building the Metro Atlanta DSA, the MADSA. But I let's go back to Detroit, because as I mentioned to you, I was in grad school at the University of Michigan in 1968, and just an hour's drive away from Detroit, in the midst of some of the most intense political activity in the the modern period, and I see something in your experiences that seems to be missing from your experiences. And I wonder if you would be able to, and that is the racial aspect of what was happening in Detroit. Detroit was a highly segregated city. I mean, not any more so than many others, but the racial segregation in the city, and the particular forms in which oppression took in Detroit, racial oppression took in Detroit, gave rise to a group called the Dodge Revolutionary Union Movement and the League of Revolutionary Black Workers. And this organization was really a militant African-American organization that struggled with the UAW, not just with the city and state issues, but with white supremacy within the UAW. And although you mentioned a book called Detroit, I Do Mind Dying, hold up another book in your bibliography at the end. There's very little contact. There's no contact at all with the mentioned in your book about the League of Revolutionary Black Workers, which was really crucially important to the history of the city and to the history of the civil rights movement. So I'm wondering, where's the gap? Why no contact? I mean, this is your story, but there's no contact with what seemed to me when I was there to be, one of the most important things that was happening in the class struggle in the United States at that time.
Well, what you may have noted was that the New American movement, some of the folks that I was with, we supported Ken Cockrell, who came out of that movement, who ran for council. And so the reason I was not centrally involved in that, because a lot of that revolved around the UAW and resistance to the UAW's top-down policies toward the rank and file. And that was specific to the UAW. The issues that they were facing, they were very important. I went to a number of the sessions that Rump sponsored, and I supported their efforts to bring greater democracy and give rank and file Black workers the right to make those decisions. But for me, I was involved in a public sector union. That was AFSCME, the Federation of State County Municipal Employees.
Right.
And they had gone through an organizing campaign with the state of Michigan to be represented. These were city employees in Detroit who were gaining bargaining authority and power. And so there were elections that were conducted. I was very much involved in that effort because the local that I led, nonprofit agency workers, and in the book I talk about a strike that I led as president, we represented many Black workers, and the city of Detroit was overwhelmingly Black membership. And so the work that I did with unions there was a focus in the public sector. So that doesn't mean to take away from the important developments that were occurring in the private sector, but that's the bailiwick that I operated. And that's why the focus is on the work that I did right within that union.
Yeah, I understand that. I had a feeling that that was the case. I guess those are the kinds of choices that I wonder about, because the context. I mean, League of Revolutionary Black Workers was not just in the auto plants. I mean, the John Watson, who was one of the primary leaders, have been a student at Wayne State University about the same time as you. And one of the things that happened was that he and this white socialist named Milecki, I can't remember what his name was, Medvecki, took over the South End newspaper, and which was a student newspaper, and they turned it into a citywide daily for a while. There was I think that the League of Revolutionary Black Workers had an influence that was way beyond just the UAW. But even within the UAW, which is probably the central political force for and against the working class in Detroit, the League, which started out at Dodge, Main, downtown, and all of the inner city auto plants that were predominantly African American. They were trying to take. They had an election campaign against the leadership of Local 600, which was the Ford River Rouge local. And they were going to win that election, and the UAW came in with the cops and took the ballot boxes. This was in, I guess, 1967 or 68. I mean, that's a big deal about what's going on in Detroit, and the relationship between white supremacy and the way that the class struggle unfolded in Detroit and Michigan. I think is really kind of a crucial aspect of what was happening during this time that you were.
Well, I think the best way I could answer that is what I had suggested before, is there's only so many struggles you can be involved in. And so when I was with AFSCME, we were dealing with the civil rights issues. The Martin Luther King was supporting the sanitation workers strike. Right. I was very much involved in that struggle and wound up going down to, as you noted in the book, to a silent march. So that issue was important. Vietnam, protesting the war in Vietnam, all of that was occurring at the same time. Right. So again, one can only do what one can focus on, where one can have an effect, an influence. For me, the influence that I could have would be right within the union movement and right within the anti-Vietnam War movement. So that's where I chose to put my energy.
Well, I understand, and let's talk a little bit about what's been happening with DSA, because DSA has exploded into a really, really important force, both within and outside the Democratic Party. I think the statistics that you give are, like 3 years ago, there were maybe 7,000 members. Now there are 55,000 here in Atlanta from a small group of alta cacas like you and me, old farts. It has expanded. There's now 700 people that are in the metro area. And yet at the same time, you mentioned the fact that demographically, all this huge influx of young people under 35 years old. I think the figure you mentioned is 75% under 35, but also you mentioned that 75% are male and 90% are white. Mm-hmm. And that's for the DSA as a whole. And I'd like you to kind of tell us a little bit about why you think that dynamic has taken place, and whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing, and particularly where you think it might be going in the future.
Right. I think what's dramatic is when we started, or I helped organize the chapter in 2006. What wound up happening, we had a DSA convention in Atlanta, and Bernie Sanders was the keynote speaker. And by the way, he was talking about all of the issues then when he was running for Senate in Vermont. He was talking about the issues of inequality and all of what needed to be done to dramatically change what the United States needed to be a country that dealt with justice, economic justice. So he was talking about this before Occupy Wall Street. And so we only had, at that convention, we had about 150 members. He came and spoke. And then in this upcoming DSA convention, which is going to be August the 1st here in Atlanta, we're going to have 1,000 delegates representing, as you pointed out, 60,000 members. So there's been this huge influx of members. And yes, originally, and still it's true, it's predominantly a white organization. And what's interesting too, predominantly male. And so there's been efforts, and this is a continuing effort on DSA's part, is to reach out and make this what it should be, a multicultural organization, a pluralistic organization. And we have made some progress in that area. So, for example, the leadership in our local now, we've got leadership that is represented by minorities, by women, and that's a major change. There still needs to be more. There's a caucus of Afro-American socialists that is doing a lot of work nationally. And so it's still a challenge. And I think it's always been a challenge for the left and for many organizations. If we start thinking about it, how many organizations do we know that are pluralistic? I mean, we live in many ways in a segregated society. People go to their own churches. They might be white churches, black churches. Where do they all come together, and what venue do they really connect up with? What organizations? And so that's, to me, always been a challenge, is how do you build that kind of organization that encompasses diversity and just represents the entire cross-section of the American society. So yes, that's definitely a challenge. Mm-hmm. Yes, and that's something we're still trying to deal with, but the signs are encouraging. We're hearing a lot of African-American young people talking about socialism. It makes sense to them, and they're getting to be quite simpatico with the notion of let's work together for those kind of common ends.
Yeah, I I applaud that, Milt, but I'll tell you this. You and I, over the course of the decades, we've seen this happen, before. And the question I always ask is, on whose terms? Where is who defines how people come together, and who determines what the priorities are? Because in this society, and the UAW has a solidarity house. Solidarity is their slogan, but solidarity in the UAW has always meant having a white top and a black bottom. And so we really the issue for us today in this new environment in which African American and Latinx and women in general are saying, we're not going there anymore. We are not sitting in an organization that is defined that defines its priorities as being not to upset or to put out of make uncomfortable European Americans who think and act white, and who are protecting their status within the working class. So solidarity has got to be redefined, and I think it might be a really good idea to have a discussion and a forum around how that redefinition is going to take place, because just bringing people into an organization is not enough. And certainly not enough anymore.
Well, David, if you really want to get a feel for DSA, come to the convention. That's going to be August 1st to August 4th. There you will see rampant democracy, which basically means you will hear people, comrades, DSA members going off in a whole lot of directions. And they will be arguing and debating with each other as to what direction the organization should be going, how much energy should be involved with the Democratic Party. Some would say, let's form a separate party. That's the only way to make a difference. Now, what's so unusual about DSA, and compared to any left organization that I've ever belonged to, it's wide open. And so that means it's an umbrella organization. You don't have to belong by believing in a set of policies or dogma or anything along those lines. It's wide open. And what you're going to see at this convention, resolutions, bylaw changes that are going to come in a whole lot of different directions. There are chapters in every state in the country. They all have different issues that they're addressing. Some will say we should emphasize certain issues over others. Some say we should focus on electoral politics. Some say the criminal justice system. Some will argue that immigrant rights should be the top priority. What's going to make this convention very interesting and maybe a little bit crazy is because you're going to deal with all of these differences. And that is a challenge. I don't know exactly how you do that when you've got an organization that's changed dramatically, bringing in a lot of people with their own ideas. It's going to be exciting, but it's going to be problematic as well. Yeah. So there's the plus and the minus and all that. I have no idea where the organization goes, except that there's a lot of energy. Now the question, could that energy be harnessed in such a way to develop, Lord? You're talking about solidarity, not imposed from above, solidarity from below. Right. That's the challenge that the organization is facing. Now, I happen to be encouraged because I see young people getting involved, and I see that democratic socialism is now viewed very positively. As you noted, you've got a majority of young people think democratic socialism is positive. Now that's come a long way, where before it was a smear. Now we've got young comrades who wear it as a badge of a badge of courage. Yes, I am a Democratic Socialist. Yes, I am proud of that. And if that means I support Fight for 15, if I support college tuition that should be paid for by the state, all of those issues that are a concern to them, they see can be addressed in a campaign that builds democratic socialism.
Right.
I'm encouraged by their efforts.
Milt, I am too. I mean, I'm really, really feeling, very hopeful in the face of this awful, awfulness, that we have around us, which is, unleashing these forces that that have always been there, but are really being, brought to the surface by this this person in the head of the executive branch. I don't, he's certainly not my president, but in any case, the question is that when you've got an organization that's 90% white, Milt, how do the other voices begin to redefine, the experiences and the perceptions that that are going to be critical for for a what I would call a working class movement to emerge. And there really has to be intentionality and mindfulness that I hope it will be present in this convention. And maybe that's something to maybe we could have a forum or something afterwards, after the convention, to discuss your book, to discuss the outcome of the convention, and where we could really do a postmortem, an after game kind of evaluation, and see what has been what are the accomplishments and what needs to be done to push the organization in that direction. I think it would be a wonderful idea to have something like that here in Atlanta, do a self-evaluation for the the DSA community. I mean, the DSA community is huge compared to almost anything else except the union membership, as far as progressives in Atlanta are concerned.
Well, I think that would be great to do, is to do some kind of evaluation after the convention and to talk with the Afro-American Socialist Caucus. Now,
right.
The way that happens, as you well know, you're a student of labor history and you're a student of unions. What happens is people come together around caucuses, their own interests, and they will pressure the organization to move in certain directions. I expect that pressure will come from those members who are committed to building socialism and to address the issues that affect brown and black people. And
European Americans as well.
Right. So the answer will be is what it's going to take for people to come together, and whether the organization allows for that flexibility. I'm convinced that it will. The question is, sometimes when you have tensions and conflicts, that can be destructive too. People say, my position is right. You know about that. Left organization where there's sectarian influences, and that's destructive. How do you maintain a balance, allow for those voices, and yet develop some kind of common sense themes or common sense goals that are grounded in political reality? So that's the challenge, and I think a follow up after the convention would be a great idea. I'd be glad to participate in any way, and I think that I could steer you to some other folks who could give you some kind of feedback as to what the convention has meant and what is accomplished and what needs to be accomplished.
So how about that, Milt? Maybe after the convention, we could do a live broadcast, just to kind of put it out there. We'd love to do a live broadcast and have this discussion out loud with DSA, talk about your book further and continue this dialogue. I want to thank you. We're at the halfway point of the hour. Thank you for being on this broadcast. Can you again tell us where that book signing is going to be that's coming up?
Yeah, the book signing is going to be a week from Tuesday, July the 30th. It's going to be at the Wheat Street Baptist Church, sponsored by the People's Agenda, Coalition for People's Agenda. And so that'll be noon, there'll be a lunch, and you can get a copy of the book, The Democratic Socialist 50-Year Adventure.
Awesome. Thank you, Milt. We look forward to the follow-up. We look forward to more conversations and
Milt,
moving this forward.
The other thing, just to say, it's an honor to be on the air with you. You are a veteran. You've been in the struggle for your whole life, and that is something that I admire and respect. And you're as much as I can admire and respect anything else is hanging in there. Keeping in the struggle, right? Mm-hmm. Keeping on. And right. So that's where we're at, Milt. And you're
he's a living legend. Thank you, Milt.
Well, you're
Thank you so much. I feel the same way about the work that you've done, David. And we've got to be long distance runners for peace and justice. You got to hang in there and you got to keep fighting.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you, Milton. We look forward to having you back. We look forward to the follow up and continuing to have these conversations. Thank you, Milt.
Okay. Bye-bye.
David, you were getting all kinds of high fives. So let's bring in our next guest to the broadcast, Mr. Edward Ford Ball. Welcome to the broadcast. How are you, sir?
Hello, how you doing today?
We are absolutely wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. You are in South Georgia. If you guys don't know who this man is, this is Edward Ford Ball. He is a candidate for the Georgia State Senate, District 12. It includes 10 counties. You want to shout out those counties?
Oh man, it's pretty much everything from between Columbus to Camilla, Georgia. So pretty much the whole southwest portion of Georgia, on down to Fort Gaines over to the Alabama line and back over, and as far up as Americus. So it's one of the largest districts in Georgia.
Yes. You're running for the state Senate. Congratulations to you for putting your hat in the race. I know the challenge. I know, it's you can do this. Just give it all you got. But you want to talk to us this morning about what is going on with these HBCUs, Savannah State, Albany State, Fort Valley State, and this bill that is merging these three universities. What the hell is going on?
Well, right now, as they say, it's being proposed. They think it could come back up next section. It's Bill 273. And so one of the biggest things that we just had a big meeting this past week, this week on it in Albany, and a lot of the alumni were there. And the biggest concerns is it was kind of a divide, actually. Some people were like, well, why don't we should be happy that we're on they're trying to give us our own governing body. And some people like, don't fall for the okie doke.
Okay, so let's before we dive into the specifics, let's tell people what this bill says. Basically, it's a merger of these three HBCUs where the governor actually creates it's an oversight, it's a board where he gets to appoint 11 members himself.
Yes.
Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Like, come on. The governor gets to appoint 11 members himself.
Yes. And, that's the thing is, can we trust the governor's decision? Some people don't fall for that now.
Sounds like OSD, the Opportunity School District, where the governor wanted to take over the failing schools in the state. It sounds just like a carbon copy of that, and it's going to be these three HBCUs this time. Yes,
and it's only been done one other time, and that's with Southern University. But that was a different time in history, and as we know, this is the environment that HBCUs have been going through is always been a struggle trying to keep these doors open, no matter if they've been private or public. And these are Georgia's public HBCUs.
Right.
And the governor wants oversight. He's going to appoint 11 members himself.
11 out of 13, is that right? 11 out of 13?
How many people are actually sitting under it? 13 total?
Yeah, it's somebody said 19. I'm not sure, but it would be
But
only
still,
two
11
people
is the
from
majority.
it would only be two people from the area itself of the school.
Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Savannah State. I'm a product of, I'm from Savannah. For 4 years, I was in the Upward Bound program at Savannah State, all 4 years of high school. I know that university. I actually attended one semester after I graduated. But I'm going to just tell you that I don't think that this is a good idea. It scares the hell out of me. I got somebody on Facebook right now. He said, hell no. His daughter, Dave, his daughter was a Savannah State graduate. Hell no. This sounds crazy. It makes me angry.
You know, but most people are saying we need to break free and we need to get what we deserve. You know, but with it not being a true body of people that the school and the community select, I still think it's politics as usual.
Absolutely it is. I believe so. I'm with you.
It certainly sounds to me, and I don't know how you feel about it, but if the governor is appointing the majority of the members on this board, and it is a substitute for the Board of Regents, right? Whatever else happens is he is going to have a lot of power and influence. These are patronage positions, right?
Yes, there you go. Correct. And that's what we're trying to explain to some people, that's what it is.
Yeah. And if it does emerge that way, and particularly if those people are African American, that gives the governor leverage in the African American community, right?
Control
in effect, because he's got these plum jobs to hand out to people who may not
do his bidding. Who do his bidding?
May not be
right.
Be so independent to be. So I'm wondering if this isn't a kind of a return to a segregated,
a coup. That's when you take over.
Yeah. I mean, but also a return to kind of segregated education. You know, these HBCU schools are both a crucial part, an embodiment of the Black heritage, right? And at the same time, that autonomy is an invitation to European Americans to understand and to get some solidarity with the folks who are graduating from there.
I don't like it, David. It sounds like OSD all over again, where the governor wanted to quote unquote take over failing schools. It sounds like the same plan. It's the same plan to take over these HBCUs. It does not sound like a good idea. Savannah State, Albany State, Fort Valley, I need y'all to rise up. Alumni, students, faculty, citizens of those communities. I need y'all to rise up and take a real hard look at this and take a stance against it. So Senator Lester Jackson out of the state Senate here in Georgia is the only senator that is quote unquote is carrying this bill. He's straight out of Savannah. Those of you that are in Savannah, Senator Lester Jackson, this is a no, hell no. So for those of you that are sitting there, this is one person where we need to come, we need to have a strong conversation. He needs to take his name off that bill. And it's not an ask, it's a demand. And if he doesn't, let's make sure that he is out of there in the next election. Let somebody primary him. Let's get him out of that seat, because this is OSD all over again. I'm sorry, David. I went on a rant.
No, that's
I get mad when I see it, and it's plain as day. It's plain as day what's going on.
Well, it certainly is something that separating out the HBCUs, the state, public HBCUs from the regular, University of Georgia Board of Regents system.
Yeah, why didn't he go get Georgia State, UGA?
Yeah.
Why don't you go get some other schools? Why the heck would you come for Savannah State, Albany State, and Fort Valley? Why?
Yeah. Well,
3 HBCUs in the Southeast, in the South.
Yeah. Right. Well, I guess Ed is we lost Ed, but.
We lost Ed. So he'll be back again. Ed Ford Ball is running for State Senate District 12 in South Georgia.
Southwest,
Southwest Georgia.
Sowega.
Never heard of it, David, but it's I like the little Sowega.
Yeah. Okay. Good luck to Ed, and I guess Ed was being pretty diplomatic about the way that he was characterizing the pros and cons, the force of the people who were in support of the idea and those who oppose it. But it certainly seems to me that segregating out the HBCUs from the general system is probably not going to work to their advantage. We will, with the HBCUs struggle as it is, and then keep putting them outside of the University of Georgia system is just going to make it easier to isolate them and to keep them from getting equal access to resources.
Yeah, I think he's back. We're having some bad weather in South Georgia. Edward, are you back? Let's see. Can you hear us, Edward? No, we're having bad weather in South Georgia, so we apologize. It's never a dull moment with this with our platform. But we got Yvette in the lobby. She's gonna come on in just a little bit. We're gonna talk about what's going on with Delta and all the problems with these labor unions. David, it's just never a dull moment here in Georgia, is it?
Nope. Not in this era, and we got good struggles that are going on, though. That's something to keep in mind and be encouraged about.
And then nationally, Trump is doing some crazy stuff with. I was hoping Egberto would come on and give us a national update. Hopefully, he'll make it in before the end of the hour. But what were they yelling about? Ilhan Omar, send her back.
Send her back. Yeah. This business about the attacks on the 4 women of color who were elected to the House of Representatives by their constituents. Many of these elections were overwhelming majorities in their favor. I just saw that Ilhan Omar, who was his main target and was the target of these chants, was back in Minneapolis and greeted by hundreds of people in the airport.
I saw that too.
Welcome home, Ilhan, and that's I think a really, really good counter narrative to the one that Trump was trumpeting at that rally in North Carolina. And once again, I think that this is
morning, Robby.
Morning, Robby. This is this sentiment of send her back is it's not new to this country. This has been around for a long time, and particularly directed at people of color. This is different from European immigrants. So I think that distinction should be made. But in any case, the response is welcome home, Ilhan. I think is
was a great counter. Was a great counter. Good morning, Robby. Good morning, Yvette. How are you, ladies?
Good morning. How y'all doing?
Good. Good morning, Robby.
I'm excited to hear an update from Yvette.
yeah. Let us know what's happening.
So tell us who Yvette. Introduce Yvette, because for those that may not have been following what's been going on with her, give her an introduction.
Yvette Avery is she wrote. She stuck up for not only herself but her fellow coworkers who were trying to organize. And Yvette, cut me off, interrupt me, whatever you need to do, because talking about you and you're right here. She stuck up for herself and her fellow coworkers, looking to get quality wages and medical at her employer, which is actually, or former employer, which is one of Georgia's largest employers out of Hartsfield, the corporation of Delta Airlines. And her efforts to mobilize, unionize, which is our right, led her to being wrongfully terminated. She had a great work record for multiple years, disclosed everything appropriately, and due to the right to work status that we have in Georgia, which means you can be terminated for any reason at any time with no legal recourse. And a lot of people are a little confused on the EEOC components or the union organizing, because those remedies, right, quote unquote remedies, are after the fact. You still can be terminated, but you have to take legal recourse alone through the courts, through EEOC, through agency, etc. It doesn't mean anything's on hold. It doesn't mean you get a paycheck. It doesn't mean you get your medical. It doesn't mean anything like what people think. And Yvette, that's just my little synopsis. If you would add, please.
Right, and you basically hit it on the head. So you're left alone here in Georgia without a union contract or some kind of protections on your job. It's just that the company has the control, and at any time, at their will, you are released. So since my termination, we have seen several others like me terminated all over the United States within that same company, based on their interactions of trying to bring a union into Delta Airlines for right now, the ramp and cargo workers. So I now know that I am not alone. Since my story has been released, I have had several people reach out to me to let me know that they have been in similar situations. So now it's time really for the workers and people, to stand up and stand together. It's time to, get the word out. It's time to expose what's going on with these corporations and how the workers are being treated. So that's one thing that has led me to my next step now, to run for office at my union, because now it's time to, really raise our voices, raise our standards, and get more people involved. We have to do it. That's the only way it's going to get done.
Congratulations, Yvette. Yes, because that's the kind of leadership it would take. Absolutely. Good for you.
Thank you.
What is your union, Yvette?
I'm with Local 728, currently running for Secretary Treasurer. So we're making a movement with the MAD slate, and we are mad in more than one way, but it's making a difference. But we're also mad at what's been going on. We're ready to take the power back for the workers. The members should have the rights within the union strong. So we need to strengthen our unions back up from the bottom to the top, each local at a time, all the way to the international. And that's across all unions here in America. It's time to step up. And when we do that, other workers, even that do not have unions, will be doing the same. They'll be stepping up to the plate.
Right. And what's the international? What's the
for us, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, the IBT.
Okay, so it's Local 728 of IBT.
Yeah, correct.
Mm-hmm. Good for you.
And
Good
the
for you.
interesting part about the airport, because the discussion y'all had earlier kind of led me to want to ask about a couple things. So the airport, because it impacts the city as Georgia's largest employer, a corporation that is headquartered here, and I'm sure it's no accident that Delta, let's just say, is headquartered here because Georgia is a right to work state. Mm-hmm. So in essence, they can utilize this as their base and use Georgia laws, whether it's in LA, whether it's New York, which is why, interestingly enough, Yvette is saying this is happening to others all over the country, but they're able to utilize the Georgia right to work status. Because if they were based other places that did not have the right to work, they would be protected in essence. So back to our airport and the Democratic, unions being tied to the Democratic Party. Yvette, you had a conversation with the Transportation Committee. I want to say he's a chairperson who's also an at-large councilman, Andre Dickens. Has that been helpful?
Actually, not really. We spoke on more than one occasion. I even went down to the Atlanta City Council and got on the mic to ensure that all council members were aware of what was going on at Delta Airlines and asked for everyone's support. I even went behind that and sent everyone a copy of the letter that I had already presented to Mr. Dickens on 2 occasions. And I did get one response back to thank me for, sending them the letter after I spoke on the floor. So I know Delta has their hands on many people here, and a lot of them will not speak out against them, will not rise up against them, but we will find someone. And if they don't decide to do it, I have decided to do it myself, and I'll bring everybody else along with me who's willing to take the ride.
Well, it's interesting because it's such a large company. Clearly, they have a large influence, even on a transportation committee chair, even on city council. I mean, it was lovely to get a response, but in essence, has any action been taken on your behalf?
No, it hasn't. And I would definitely be surprised if it was. I would be pleasantly surprised if I did see anyone step up and speak out against, Delta Airlines, anyone that's based here anyway. I know other places people will speak out, but here in Atlanta, they do have their stronghold in every area.
Is it fear, Yvette? Is it fear? Are they fear of losing their jobs, being the next one on the chopping block? Is that what it is?
Well, now, yeah, for the employees, definitely. But people who hold positions here in Atlanta, it's not necessarily, I think, the fear of, they may get a little, feedback from Delta, but I think a lot of people here have perks with the company. So since they have those perks, they don't want to lose out on those.
There's also a huge marketing division and a legal team. And so there's an in-house legal team and an out-house legal team. And the marketing is very effective. It is the appearance of, a company that is well-run, well-equipped, fair, equitable, etc. And there's a lot of sponsorship by the corporation. Ironically, the funding from that sponsorship is probably afforded off of the low wages and the lack of benefits. But that being said, people buy into the illusion, and then people like Yvette, don't have the same exposure level, and so they don't know to believe it. But since we're here and we're talking about it, let's get a little honest. We're real honest. Yvette's been at the company over 7 years, right?
Correct.
Now she's wrongfully terminated, and what she witnessed as an agent, as a ticket agent, and trying to organize, quote unquote, the ramp below wing, I can attest to. I also have experience at airlines. I was an in-flight for over 10 years. And it's interesting because the union dynamics, back to what you and David were talking about, they intersect in race, gender, and income. And you see it very clearly at the airlines. So at one time, the airlines only hired Caucasian attendants. And at one time, it's very difficult to get your flight credentials as a pilot. So the majority of captains, pilots, et cetera, at this particular airline are Caucasian. And there are very few women, and they're Caucasian males. So in essence, what you have is a hierarchy. And the people who were hired below wing, right, whether it's ticket counter ramp, baggage handlers, cleaners, caterers, this is predominantly people of color, which are predominantly Black in Atlanta. So you have this payment structure that is, some people would say, very racist and sexist. And it completely is a disconnect from the marketing that is released, when the company sponsors, an event for equity, or an MLK Day, right? So because MLK, and Yvette talked about this, would probably be appalled. And there's another power component which brings in the unions. Ironically, the pilots, who are predominantly male and Caucasian, are unionized. So they are protected. So their wages, when they get called out on storms, they earn a ridiculous amount of money called a green slip. The attendants are not, which is a workforce of 25,000 attendants, predominantly female. So when scheduling goes haywire because of storms, they're just forced to do whatever, which is why their morale is different, right? But they're not unionized, so they don't have protection. and I'm going somewhere with this, and then I want to hear what Yvette has to say. Below that, you have your ticket agents, you've got your ramp folks. This is a whole operation affecting not only Atlanta and commerce, but really our country and a global monetary market, right? And so when you look at it that way, the agents tend to get upset with the attendants who don't have protection, so they're closing door in their faces to get those flights out on time because the agents, like Yvette, didn't have protection if the flight didn't get out on time, right? So only this tier, this elite tier at the company is actually paid what they should be paid, is protected and treated in a certain way. And the below rank, right? The caterers, the cleaners. I mean, this is low wage. And I want Yvette to talk about this. This is predominantly out of Clayton County. And interestingly enough, the perception is, oh, those people don't want to work. And I know, because I was at in-flight. It looks like they're going from gate to gate. You know, the wheelchair pushers, they're not motivated. It's because they're not making any money. They can barely afford anything. So when this company sponsors this, you know, wonderful event, oh, they're so charitable, philanthropy and so on. Not exactly. They're actually taking the money that should have, go ahead.
No, I want to bring Yvette in because we're going to be at the top of the hour in just a bit. So, and I want to bring Egberto in to close us out. But Yvette, go ahead and answer where Robby was going, because you guys are.
Or just your thoughts on it.
Right. Well, she's exactly right when it comes to how the hierarchy has been set up within the airline industry to make everyone feel that, you know, the pilots are above us. Then it's the flight attendants, then gate and ticket agents, ramp caterers, and so on. So it has been set so very much so in stone where people feel like they're better than others, and it's ridiculous, but it has been done very well by the company. And as you said, the money being spent out to show that there's such this, you know, a great, amazing place could be used for their employees to feel like they're worthy and to be taking care of their families with, and, you know, to offer them health care and benefits that are not offered to people that are like Red Reserve agents who don't get benefits in a limited amount of hours to work. So yeah, everything she said was definitely on point when it comes to that.
So what's next steps for you? What's next steps for you, Yvette? Let's let her
to continue to get the word out, to bring more workers in, to, you know, rise up and fight and not give up until something is done about it. I refuse to allow this to continue on going here, and hopefully can inspire other people in other places and other corporations who are going through the same things to rise up as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Robby. We're going to have to bring Yvette. Yvette, please, you know, you're always a friend to this broadcast. Please come back. Keep us abreast of what you're doing. Congratulations on your run. We're going to fight right here with you. Thank you so much.
We appreciate it. Yeah, have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Let's see. We got Egberto in the lobby. I don't know where he was today. I think he was playing hooky on us. Egberto.
No, I wasn't playing hooky. I was watching an excellent show, and I was watching David doing what David does best. David, I have to give you a whole lot of kudos, and I want to speak specifically to David, and it goes as follows. Right now, the attacks are on Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, and Ayanna Pressley. They are trying to make them the face of the Democratic Party. A lot of the progressives are now scared. They are concerned that these women are taking over the party and are going to create issues. The problem is that they should not be concerned about these women who have legitimate issues, and not only that, but these women who are more in the center of what progressives really want, what Democrats really want, what most Americans really want. The people that need changing are those people who are constantly voting for Trump against their own interests. And we know who they are. And those are people that David Slavin can actually speak to. And those are the people that needs to be spoken to. We don't need to change Ilhan Omar. We need to change the others. The Democratic Party has it all wrong. Stop trying to change the what's going to be our future, and change those folks that are continued to the past or scared to talk to their own, so that they will vote appropriately. And that is my word of international, or rather of national news.
All right, Egberto, we want to thank you for chiming in at the last minute, but we needed that last word. You can find Egberto Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Instagram, Periscope, YouTube, Facebook. This man is everywhere. Politics done right. Egberto Willies, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Great show today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Egberto.
Ooh, we've been on fire, Robby and David.
Yeah.
I just want to add that if folks don't make the correlation that this is a safety issue and also a public school issue, because Clayton County taxes are funded a lot off of the airport, and this idea of property that y'all were chatting about earlier, and the HBCUs and so on, it is similar to the APS. Those properties are extremely valuable. They are located in an area that remains affordable, quote unquote. And I think it's about the property. And the trend is going south. So this master plan at College Park that's happening at the airport, the real estate trends. And without people being able to have quality living wage jobs, they're not going to be able to afford. So they're going to get pushed farther to rural Georgia, out of Clayton County.
Interesting that you said that, Rob, because there's an article about Bank of America, I believe, that's offering rural areas like some grant money to buy homes. So this is a conversation I think I'd love for you to dive into more about what's happening with this real estate, South Georgia, this dredging of the Savannah River, taking over these colleges. It all ties into this, people that want to.
Yeah.
There's something going on, Robbie, and I think the real estate market is part of it.
It's an industry.
Robbie, let me just mention that there's an article in this issue of the New Yorker called "The Dispossessed: Why Are So Many Black Families Losing Their Land?" And it's about North Carolina, but I think it definitely applies to Georgia as well. And it's one of the hidden secrets of the history of land ownership in the South. Millions upon millions of acres. And this is not from slavery or from Reconstruction. This is recent. This is the last 50 years. That millions of acres have been legally wrested from Black families and homeowners because many of them, their deeds, the title to their land is not registered except as what they call heirs property. That is heirs.
Yeah, the probate.
So let's hold that thought, David, because this sounds like a conversation we can definitely take into next week. Robbie, let's get into some of this real estate. That's what's happening with real estate. So I want to thank you for tuning in this broadcast. I'm just getting more and more excited about what we're doing, the people we're talking to. We want to thank Milt Tambor for coming on. His book again is The Democratic Socialist 50-Year Adventure. I am Tamara Johnson Shealey. You can find us at tamaraforgeorgia.com. You can find Mr. Egberto Willies at politicsdoneright.com. You can find Miss Robby at the NPU Resident Public Forum. I always want to say that backwards. And then you can find Mr. David Slavin at Acknowledge the Divide right here on Facebook. Thank you. We'll see you next Friday, same time, same channel.
Power to the people.